Today I'm at AMVETS Post 2006, a major sponsor of Central Florida Salute. And I want to introduce to you the commander here, Ronnie Mack. Ronnie, tell us a little bit about AMVETS 2006. Where are you located? And
we are at 500 North Canal Street, Leesburg, Florida. It's right off of 441, between 441 and Main Street on Canal. Can't miss us. And we're a veterans organization, along with, we have an auxiliary, and we have sons of veterans that are related some form or another to a veteran. And we do a lot for a lot of charitable donations and stuff to charities in the area and in the county. And we're a major sponsor to Central Florida Salute. We're proud of it. We're glad to be. You guys do a heck of a job, and we'll sponsor you as long as I'm here. We're going to sponsor you. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, we do. Sue and I really appreciate it. We're a two-person operation. Yep. And what we try to do with education and supporting our veterans community, and you supporting us is major thing. It's major.
We're glad to do it, Bob. We're glad to do it.
And you have sons here. You have auxiliary here. You've got a website, too, if somebody wants to join.
Yep. It's, don't punch into www. It's amvets-2006.org. And it'll take you right to our website, Facebook page, and all that's there, and you'll be able to find that. The webmaster, he tries to get the calendar on there every month, anything pertinent. There's a lot of other links on there for veterans to find out where to get help for certain claims and stuff like that. Our webmaster's really into that stuff. That's the guy you ought to be interviewing right there. So,
well, you know what,
he's got
Ronnie?
A lot of stuff.
You have a lot of clout. You tell him to talk to me, and we'll get him on the show, okay?
I can do that. I can
do
that.
But I just want to, on behalf of Sue and myself, we want to thank AMVETS 2006 because you guys are the major players behind us, and we appreciate it.
But we just wish we could do more. We really do.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.
Hello, welcome to Central Florida Salute YouTube once again. I'm at Eagles 4273 in Okahumpka, and I have a wonderful lady here who was married to a wonderful man who's a dear friend of mine, a dear friend of James Floyd from the radio station. He was on the radio with me quite a few times. And he's also in our YouTube.
Yes.
Bob Haines,
he did a good job.
Chaplain, the Chap, as we called him. And this is his beautiful wife, Polly.
Yes.
Polly Haines.
Yes.
And I asked you to come on because I wanted you to talk a little bit about Bob and what it's like to be married to a man like Bob who's all over. He was all over the place. And we should say he was a chaplain, and I don't know, people don't know a lot about chaplains.
Right.
So you want to tell people about chaplains, about what branch of service, or how's that work?
Yeah, he actually was able to serve in 4 of the military services. He was in Vietnam for 8 years from the time he got out of high school in '62. So he went straight there, and then he was in 8 years and decided he wanted to come back and go to school and go into the ministry.
He was in Vietnam for eight years?
Well, he wasn't in Vietnam for 8 years, but he had 2 tours during the 8 years.
Oh, he had 2 tours during an 8-year period.
He served in Italy and lots of places. But,
yeah.
So then he came home in '69 and started at Lake Sumter, and I was already just got out of high school. And we met at the Baptist Student Union. He came to go to it, and I had just become the president of it. And so he kind of took over the meeting. And I thought, What is
He
this?
was like that. Yeah, he was. He was a wonderful man.
Yep.
But he lets you know where everything was.
But
you
we
know?
did great stuff that year. We actually had up with people group that came, Sing Out Jacks, and we had all kinds of fun events that he helped spearhead. We all
Yeah.
worked together. So it was wonderful. He knows how to organize.
Well, let's start in the beginning, Polly. Where are you from originally?
I was born in New York, upstate, Cuca Lake, Finger Lakes area near Corning, New York, where the Corning glass is made. And my family moved down here in 1965 to be in the sunshine. And my dad built the A-frame on Lakeshore Drive if you go back toward the bridge from Tavares. And there was nothing there then, but he built an A-frame. And we lived there for quite a while. And my mom died in the meantime. So my dad raised my sister and myself here, and we had an older sister and older brother. They've already gone to be with the Lord. So I grew up there, graduated from Eustis in '69, and then went to Lake Sumter in '69 through '71. Bob and I both graduated in '71 from Lake Sumter after he came back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a professor, Mr. Rennie, English professor there, who kind of commandeered the guys who were coming home because they were so much older than us we were, and they had their own. They'd already lived life a lot, so he would meet them for coffee, and they had a coffee group, and the Vietnam guys would just hang out. So he did that and actually became very close to Mr. Rennie, and he was like a mentor to him because Bob's dad had been killed by a train when he was 14.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he was kind of thrown into being the head of the family at a young age, and without a dad, but his uncles helped, and that's one good thing about being in the military. With the family, the extended family can really be a support for the kids especially, and for the family, because we didn't go overseas with Bob when he was shipped out.
Yeah, so let me get this straight. He was in the service for a period before he met you, right? He'd already done 8 years, 8 years? And then he saw the love of his life.
Yes.
And you guys got married.
Yeah.
But he still was deployed a lot, was he not?
Not at that point, because his goal was to go to seminary. He was starting at Lake Sumter to go into the ministry. Mm-hmm. And in the back of his mind in the Air Force, he always had kind of had a space for the chaplain corps, Air Force. Mm-hmm. And so I think in the back of his mind, that's kind of where he was geared. And so he went through all the schooling, and we met at Lake Sumter, and then he went for a term at Stetson, and then went to University of Florida and got his BA, and then went on to Southern Seminary in Louisville. And we were together then. We had 2 children, very young. So we went to seminary with a new baby and a 1.5-year-old, and so that was quite a thing. And it was great, but in the meantime, in seminary, he began to focus more on his military thinking as well as the preaching end of it. So the endorsing board of the Southern Baptist Convention, to be a chaplain, they had to have approval after 2 years of preaching to be sure that that's what they wanted to do. Then they could be approved by the board, and then they could go in the chaplain corps. So he met after seminary. We were actually at a children's home during the time he was in seminary. So he was a dad to 12 kids then. 10 to 12, yeah. Wow. We had 10 and less boys we lived with who were 5 years and up to 12. And then we had our 2 little ones as well. So he was in seminary, and he also worked on the farm there. It was a working farm. And that's one of his fun days, was driving the tractor and plowing snow.
He liked his Harley, too.
Yeah, he did get a Harley. So, so we had those years, and we went back to, he preached at Tavares during an interim, which is a fill-in for a pastor at First Baptist, right after seminary. And then Palm Coast was just 6,000 people at the time. And there was just a little hub of what Palm Coast is now. Yeah. And they had a little part-time church there, and he went there, and the convention helped him preach to get some funds to preach there, and then eventually that church constituted, and now it's Palm Coast Baptist, First Baptist out on US 1. And then from there we went to the Navy. Bob found out, well, Reagan was in at the time, and he was building up the Navy. Bob would have liked to go on in the Air Force. That was full. Army was full. He'd already been in reservist as an Army chaplain. And so the Navy was open, and they said, go now. So 2 weeks later, he had his physical and was off. So we ended up staying at Mayport for 2 years and at the chapel there. The good thing about the family part of it, especially well, I was in the Navy mostly. We were in the Navy, but the wives groups, especially if you lived on base, they would partner up to help each other. Because when the guys were gone, it was like there was no guys around, so everybody kind of banded together and supported each other. And a lot of, it's good for the women to join the organizations that are available, and there's a lot of helps for the women who are alone and need stuff. You know, there's other agencies connected with the military that will provide help or funds or help you to get direction or counseling or whatever. Excuse me. So those are good things to have. And
yeah, one of my very first shows I did about almost 15 years ago, I did it over at the Armory here in Leesburg. And they were being deployed to Africa for some reason. I don't remember what it was. But that's when I learned about they have these organizations that you mentioned inside, and they're very, I don't know what it was. They don't tell people about this person's been deployed, whatever, because they didn't want them to pick on the spouse, you know. So they bond together very well, and it's got to be tough when you know.
So it's a good support, and then also your family is a big help. When we were different places that we didn't have a lot of funds, at Christmas, you know, the aunts and uncles and grandma sent gifts, and so we have 4 kids. We had 2 while he was in school in Florida, and then had 1 after we left the children's home in Louisville, and he graduated, and that's when he started preaching, and he also preached in Cascia as well at one point. And then we had a baby in Palm Coast, so that's when we went in the Navy. We had 4.
So you spent a lot of time with Bob when he was in the service.
Yes.
You weren't separated a whole lot.
We weren't. We were when he went. He was deployed several times on the ship, and the good thing for the children was to be able to go to see the ship if that was able, you know, to see what it's going to, because they were young. And Dad's going to be gone, you know, for whoever knows how long, and they weren't really aware of what that was at that point. And so we actually went to the ship and watched him get on, and then the support for them was to keep them involved in things and to keep up with Dad. Letter writing was the best at that point. Of course, there was no cell phones or anything. And we did videos, and the kids would talk to him on the video and send them back and forth. So,
you know, I think about that a lot because, you know, military history is kind of my hobby, whatever.
Yes,
I'm not an expert at anything.
You do a good job at it.
When you go into, you know, like World War I, which was the trench wars, and even World War II, it ain't over till it's over there. And even when I was in Vietnam, my service time, well, I wasn't in Vietnam, I was in Thailand, but the big thing was if you got a letter, and if you got a box of cookies, you were real big. But nowadays, they can video each other on the computer and everything. But you go back to World War II, World War I, some of these guys, they're still not accounted for, you know. And what amazing world we live in now,
It
you
is,
know?
it is.
So.
Well, even in Desert Storm, fast forward, Bob ended up in Desert Storm with the Marine Corps because the Navy served chaplains and doctors and served the Marines. And he was in the unit that General Schwarzkopf did the maps and showed where you went around. So they were doing services right on the border. And those guys, even at that time, had not had showers, or, you know, they barely could get mail. So they brought in a decontamination unit and put water in it. And so set it up for the guys that were up on the front lines after hanging on the border for so long to get showers. And Bob got a Catholic priest and put him at one end of the showers, and he got at the other. And said clean on the inside and clean on the outside. So, and they were happy
your
for
husband
that.
was a great guy. I really enjoyed him, you know. But he wore the uniform of, tell everybody how many different branches he was in.
Air Force enlisted for 8 years before he went to school, and then he went into the Army Reserve during college, seminary, and did hospital work and took clinical pastoral education courses while he was in seminary. And that went through when we were still in both churches. He was still serving as a reservist, and that was with a medical unit. And then when we went Navy, he had to switch branches and went into the Navy and served chapels and on ships, and then was sent with the Marines, and he actually was sent then to go to Desert Storm. He also served in the Persian Gulf prior, was on a ship and actually kind of got stuck on it. He was doing services, and the helicopters would hop him from one ship to the other at that point. And they were stuck on a ship when it went into the Persian Gulf when there was a call-up. So
Wow, he had an amazing career, you know.
yeah, lots of neat stuff. And on the ships, he was able to. Some of the guys would tell him they were able to say the prayers the captain would have them say a prayer at night to close things down, and it was so meaningful to the ones on the ship because they were in a situation that needed prayer, and the same in the desert.
You know, I've had the honor of not only meeting your husband and talking with him, but Stan Beach,
Yes.
Chaplain Stan Beach.
Yes.
I asked you if you knew about him.
Yes.
I had
Love
not
them.
seen him in a lot of years, but I understand that one of the chaplain schools was named after him, and he was in Vietnam. He lost a leg, and his hearing was impaired. But what a guy! I'll tell you. And I met one other guy who was in Vietnam, who was a preacher, you know, a chaplain, and it's amazing. When you go to war and you're a chaplain, you're not carrying a weapon.
Nope.
They're not allowed to carry a weapon, but they do have a person to protect them.
Yeah.
And with Sam Beach, this guy jumped on his body and everything for him, you know. But
they had one right with him, and in Bob's case, he drove in the desert, and so he was his protection, but also was his driver, and they helped carry his supplies to go to the front lines to have services. And one time he said that he'd forgotten the code, or did not have the code up in his mind, and they were targeted because it was at night, and they were driving in an area where nobody else was. So the aircraft above
didn't know who he was.
didn't know he was, and thank goodness our religious program is what they call them, was able to communicate, yeah, this is who we are, and we're okay.
Wow.
So there's lots of interesting things happen.
They're a very interesting group, chaplains. I'll tell you, it's to serve the Lord and to serve mankind in all kinds of situations. It's amazing. It's amazing. But he wore the uniform of all these other branches of service, but what happened to the Coast Guard?
Well, our daughter felt sorry for him that he wasn't in the Coast Guard, and so
I had to bring that up.
She joined the Coast Guard Reserves. She's active duty now, and actually she was just off for about a week and got back. But she is serving. She actually was in 9 years, and Bob kept telling her, Dad kept telling her, you need to go officer, and she had no inclination to be in charge of anything. She just wanted to do what she did, love the water and the animals, and so finally, just about a year or two before Bob passed away, she went on to chaplain school. Not chaplain school, I'm sorry, to get her from enlisted to officer, get her first rank. So now she's a lieutenant, and she's working out of St. Pete.
Out of St. Pete?
Yeah.
Well, if she can get, because I know I've talked to a lot of active military people, and they have to get permission.
Yes.
But if she can get permission, she's Central Florida Salute is looking for her.
Okay, I'll tell her.
You know, we'd love to have her there because I had a lot of respect for your husband. It's her dad.
Yeah.
And to see her stepping up like that is it's amazing. That's an amazing story.
That's our youngest daughter, and our oldest daughter had gone Air Force like Dad, and she was in Enduring Freedom. I heard someone mentioning Enduring Freedom, and so she was over there when the 9/11 happened.
Oh.
And so that was her story about how everybody felt being so far from the country, you know, and not being a part, although they had to support.
Yeah,
you know, it was like, we can't do anything, but we can. And they did.
You mentioned 9/11 because we're filming this in August, and the 9/11 is not that far away, you know, and that's an important thing to try to remember. We have to know. Got to teach people about that.
Yeah.
You know, you hear about Pearl Harbor, but you also got to realize 9/11. And I know where I was. I tell the story where I was, but it's not about me, this show. But anyway, that was an amazing time, and it's after 9/11, you saw guys like professional football player Pat Tillman. He walked away from $4 million and to become a Ranger.
Yeah.
And the sacrifices our men and women have made, that's what makes our country great, you know.
Exactly.
But
we have.
So what is Polly doing nowadays?
Well, we have 2 other children, and those are the boys. They're sandwiched between Lauralee and Luana, and I spend time with them. They're all in Florida now, except for Lauralee's in South Dakota. But the 2 boys live in the area, and the older one, Rob, is doing graphic type work, and has been doing that for a long time. But when he was in art school, he did a project for his senior, they don't call him a thesis, whatever it was, and used Dad's military career, used photos from them all the way. He used grandfathers from World War II. He was in the Army Air Corps, Bob's father. And then Bob's stations being in Vietnam, and then up to the current with the situations that have gone in the different situations we've been dealing with, or the wars or not wars. But he did art project to depict those for his senior thesis. And as the Chaplain Corps, he did the Chaplain's Life through those.
Oh.
So he made all art paintings for those. So now he's working in the area. Our other son is in computer, and he and his wife have our first grandchild, and she's 7, going into 2nd grade. So that's what I'm doing now. I also
a little babysitting.
Yeah, not yet, but I will. But so I'm continuing that, and I've been in a lot of churches and organizations, and that's what's really helped our family through the years to keep everybody solid, was to get the kids into something constant. Church programs, sports organizations, but to keep them involved, and then showing the pictures back and forth to help them grow and learn how to what the life is.
I understand that, because I was talking to, well, you were here when I was talking to a Sarge. It's important for family to be involved in the kid's life, you know, and structure. You need that, you know, and you guys you're a great family.
Well, we had Christmas twice. Bob was getting ready to go overseas just before 9/11. He was called in, and we knew he was going to be gone over all the holidays, birthdays, and especially Christmas. So we took the kids to Disney that year, was their Christmas present in July. And then we opened presents, literally opened presents on the front porch at Grandma's house.
Christmas in July.
Under the oaks with the moss hanging down. So those kinds of things. And then Dad was able to call sometimes during those times. So helping them understand and be able to pray with them, and they can realize that God can touch them while they're over there. He can protect them. And then a lot of times the things we wrote, he would be doing Bible studies or whatever, and we sent a letter one time with Psalm 91 in it. He got that into so meaningful for protection that he shared it with his troops whenever he could. So all those things working together, the Lord just protects and takes care of and holds us together. And
I enjoyed with your husband quite a bit. You know, like I said, we used to be he'd come in on the radio station along with Colonel Keith Oliver. I think you heard of him, right?
Yeah, I do know him.
But he's sitting over there. That's why I said. Anyway, it was it's a great to have people like him and Keith and on the radio and talk about things and let us know what's going on in the community. But it's also great to have this nice little show right here.
Yes.
And we're not for profit, but we have a lot of fun. And,
yeah, absolutely.
But I think unless you have something you want to mention, I think we're about ready to wrap this up.
Okay. I just, the fact that our country is what it is, even though there's stuff that's not what we would wish, I really believe the Lord's placed us here and is protecting, and I just am grateful that the military have been able to do what they do and to stand strong and to do their jobs. I'm grateful that the country supports them, and that shows like this and things that are taking place, there are open arms now toward them, and to trying to comprehend what's taken place and to learn and teach the children of what needs to be done for the future. And it's going to be good. So.
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, it is the greatest country in the world, and it's because of our military. Let's not kid anybody. You know, it's that man and that woman who put their life on the line so that we can live in the freedom that we have. So we're going to salute them now, because we're going to end the show.
Okay.
Now, you were not in the
I'm
military.
not going to salute. I will.
You do this way.
Yes.
That's how. If you're not in the military, you salute that way. You know, you ready?
I am.
To all our veterans out there, yeah, let's try it again. I almost made it through the show without goofing up. All right. To all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time.